Hey guys! Okay, this is going to be a long video, so you'll get your house clean for sure. For those of you who like to listen to the videos while you're cleaning. What I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to discuss the interview of Cindy Watts, which is the excuse that a lot of the attackers are using to attack her. Now, as we know, a lot of the attackers are new or newer because most of the original attackers have kind of probably, I guess, moved on to the Daybell case or any number of other true crime cases that they evidently feel they can make more money on by attacking people who they're evidently directed to attack. So the newbies are being told that the reason they're attacking Cindy Watts is because she said bad things about her daughter-in-law during her interview. Well, the first thing I want to point out is the obvious fact that Cindy Watts was being attacked long before that interview. Cindy Watts has been under attack from day one. So using that interview as the excuse for attacking her is laughable, or it would be laughable if the attacks against her weren't so serious. So to all of you newbies out there, you've got it wrong. And when they post those comments on our channel, using that interview as the excuse for why she's being attacked, I consistently ask them to please point out exactly what it was that Cindy Watts said in that interview that was so terrible. And each and every time, they fail to produce any evidence whatsoever from that interview that would lead anybody to think that Cindy Watts had done something wrong. Sometimes they just disappear, which is kind of nice. Other times, no doubt, they just flip to a different profile and try again. They have so many. The last one who posted a crappy comment, I looked, and sure enough, fake profile, zero content, created March 3rd of 2019. Wasn't that the week that we noticed that the attackers were regrouping and trying to add on a few more recruits? Interesting. And then, of course, there are those who respond by using the F word, as a verb and a noun and with caps, because they don't know what else to say, because either they're too lazy to listen to the interview themselves and to try to look for anything that Cindy Watts said that was bad, in their opinion, or they did take the time to listen to the interview and they realized that they've been attacking somebody, evidently with the belief that that somebody had said something bad, but they can't find any evidence to support what they've been told that she said. So we're going to take a closer look at that specific interview, and then that way, when the attackers use that interview as their ridiculous excuse for their attack campaign against Cindy Watts, for their hate campaign against Cindy Watts, for their justification for their illegal acts, then we can just point to that video and say, take a listen. So at the very beginning of the interview, the interviewer asked if Cindy traveled to Colorado. Now, my hunch is that the interviewer knew damn well she didn't. So here it is. Cindy said, well, Ronnie did. Okay, well, so far I don't see anything terrible. Do you? Cindy said that Chris Watts let everybody in the house. Her purse was still there. Her cell phone was still there. But there were no kids, and her daughter-in-law also wasn't there. Okay, so far so good. I don't see Cindy Watts saying anything terrible so far. And then Cindy said that she figured at the time that her daughter-in-law ran off with the kids to punish her son, and so he could worry about her. Okay, is that terrible? That sounds kind of reasonable to me, that that would be what she figured at the time when she heard that her daughter-in-law and her grandchildren were missing. You know, she probably figured they got into an argument, and her daughter-in-law was going to just, take off and show him, I guess, who's boss, as if he didn't already know. So I'm just saying, I don't think Cindy has said anything yet that is worthy of any sort of ridiculous justification for attacking her. Let's see. Let's see here. I wrote a few notes, so when you hear the paper crinkling, I know whenever you can hear my papers crinkling, then the attackers like to say, "You're reading it," which I think is hilarious that they would spend any time or effort at all to post comments on our channel telling me that I'm reading something. You see where I'm going with that? Like, really? So you will hear papers crinkling, but no, I'm not reading anything. I'm just referencing my scribbled notes about that interview. So let's see here. Oop, let's crinkle the paper again. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Okay, good. Okay, let's see. So Cindy Watts shared that Christopher Watts said to her on the phone, "Tell Dad I need him to come down." And she said, "What about me?" And he said, "No, Mom, just stay. Just send Dad." Now that's something I think is interesting, because the attackers have used that part of the interview to say that Christopher Watts didn't want his mother there because she's controlling, and he hated his mother. He didn't even want her there, and things like that. Which is ludicrous, of course, for them to take that leap. He said, "No, Mom, just stay. Just send Dad." You do realize that Mom had a life at home, and she had Christopher Watts' sister and her family there with, grandchildren coming over and everything. A house to take care of, pets to take care of. But I'll tell you what this response from Christopher Watts leads me to believe. It leads me to believe that this wasn't the first time that his wife disappeared with the kids. Just my opinion. So Cindy Watts continues in the interview. He picked him up at the airport, meaning Christopher Watts picked Ronnie up at the airport, and they drove to the police station, and Chris still didn't say anything to him. Evidently, 7 hours before then, Christopher Watts had already gone through an interrogation, and he also let them search the house. This is according to Cindy Watts. And then he and Ronnie went directly to the police station for the second interrogation. And then Cindy Watts said 5 hours later they called Ronnie in and said that Chris wanted to talk with him. And she said that Chris cried and said, "Sorry, Dad." He said he went into a rage and killed her after he found out that she killed Bella and Cece. Interesting. Is that what the attackers are mad about? That Cindy Watts is telling the interviewer what Christopher Watts said? I'll say it again. She said that Christopher Watts cried and said, "Sorry, Dad." He said he went into a rage and killed her after he found out she killed Bella and Cece. Well, so far I don't see Cindy Watts saying anything bad about her daughter-in-law. Let's continue. She explained how they wouldn't let Ronnie see their son. And then Ronnie was on his way back to the airport, and then the public defender called him and told him to come on back. And then she said that the public defender, it evidently wasn't to see their son, it was to speak with the public defender. And then Cindy Watts said the public defender kept in touch with them. And then the next update they received was when they found their bodies. And Cindy said that she fell to the floor. It was just unbelievable. And she started to cry. So far, I don't see anything at all with Cindy Watts' interview that would in any way support the attacker's claim that Cindy Watts was mean or saying bad things about her daughter-in-law. So she explained that they had no contact with their son, no letter writing. She said she didn't understand why she couldn't even write a letter to her own son. You know, something like, "Love you, keep fighting, we're here to support you." Okay, I still don't see anything that would give the attackers any reason whatsoever to accuse Cindy of saying anything bad. She asked the question in the interview, why couldn't we write him a letter? And then Ronnie and Cindy were told at the point that he was thinking of a plea that he wanted to speak to them about it. But he wasn't allowed to talk to them about it. Isn't that interesting? Why wouldn't he have been allowed to speak with his own parents about whether or not to accept a plea deal? She said that they talked with him about the beautiful memorial service that they had for Bella and Cece, and about which pictures they used and which songs they chose for the memorial service. She said they flew out to Colorado on Monday. They saw him on Monday night, and the plea deal was scheduled for Tuesday. She said she just wanted to be able to talk. She said, why is everything seeming to be so shrouded in secrecy? And she said something about the death penalty that I thought was pretty spot on. She said that they were told that the defense was going to save his life and that the way they were talking, it was like they already knew he was guilty. That's a really good point. At that point, he was innocent. That's how it works, folks. He was innocent until proven guilty. So she made a really good point there. Quote, it's like they already knew he was guilty. And she said that she had no concern at all about the death penalty. And you know what? She was right. She said it was Colorado. Colorado was changing. She said, I don't see how the death penalty could have mattered. And she was right. In fact, it wasn't long after that interview that they actually changed the law in Colorado, right? And took the death penalty off the table for everybody. I'm not sure, but wasn't it like 20 years or more since Colorado had even put anybody to death? So Cindy Watts was right to ask the question, why on earth was anyone talking about the death penalty? It was Colorado. People aren't put to death in Colorado. And then Cindy Watts said in her interview, all I want is the truth. I just want the truth. She said, I know Chris would take responsibility, and I guess maybe he is. I don't know. I just can't see him doing that. Okay, so far I don't hear her saying anything bad about her daughter-in-law. So I'm thinking that all this time that the attackers have been pretending that they are attacking Cindy Watts because of this interview, that they're lying. Add to that the fact that the attackers were attacking Cindy Watts long before this interview, and we know that they're lying. She was asked, what do you think the truth is about how they died? And Cindy Watts replied, I don't know anymore. I don't know his frame of mind. But why plead guilty if you told your dad you didn't do it? And then they were told that their son would talk to them after the sentencing. And Cindy said in the interview, well, isn't that too late then? What if he tells me, no, I didn't do it? And I just took this plea deal because they told me I was going to go to jail anyway. And then Cindy said again, I just want the truth. She also said, but I would like to know what triggered it. How can a perfectly normal young man, he was normal, but he wasn't evaluated when he came into the system. He wasn't normal if he did this. And then the interviewer said it must be bewildering, and Cindy said, it's bewildering to me. It is absolutely. And then she asked, how does this happen? And she says, and I go back in my mind thinking, was there something I didn't pick up on with Chris? What do you think, you guys, so far? Do you hear her bashing her daughter-in-law? I sure don't. She continues, but I can't think of anything except that he was quiet. The interviewer said, it sounds like in your own mind, you're unsure as to what happened. And Cindy said, yes. And the interviewer said, have you reconciled the idea that he could have done all this? And Cindy said, yes. And she continued, and that scares me to death to think that he could have done all this. And I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there right now. but I don't see why he's pleading guilty. I wouldn't. I'd fight. I'd fight to the end. But then you ask yourself, would a normal person dispose of the bodies the way he did? And then she said, I would have called 911 if it happened like that. The interviewer said, what would you say to Chris right now if he were here, if he were sitting here? And Cindy answered, if we were here by ourselves, I would say, Christopher, I need to know what happened that night. I need to know what happened. I've got to get these thoughts out of my head about what I think could have happened. I need to know. And then she said, and I think in time, he will tell me. The interviewer said, probably nothing you thought you would ever have to face. And Cindy said, no, never. And not from the son that I raised and that Ronnie raised. Our children, we did everything for them. We worked for them. We wanted them to have a good life and good education. We stressed education. They were both doing well, I thought. And Cindy continues, marriages can be bad, but you can get out of them and go on. But I don't know what was going on in anybody's mind that night. I mean, I feel too much. I definitely feel everything way too much. And I have a conscience that I just feel way too much. The interviewer asked, what would you hope would happen now? And Cindy replied, well, I want Chris to have his day in court. I mean, I need to know. I mean, I'd feel wonderful if I could talk to him and he could tell me what happened, and then we can all go on. But if he didn't do it, if he did not do this, then I need somebody to defend him. She continued, I need somebody to defend him if he did not do this. And then she asked rhetorically, do they have the evidence? She continued, he's my son. I've got to do everything I can to help to make sure that he is defended properly. But he said this is his decision, so I don't know. There's doubt. I have doubt that he did it. I can't see that he did it. I just cannot see him doing that as much as he loved his girls. How do you do that? I just don't see it. I just can't see him doing it. I just want to make sure that he has a defense. I just want him to be defended. Okay, a lot of the attackers will use this part. Well, actually, they don't use this part specifically, but this is part of their excuse for their ridiculous attacks. To say that she's blaming her daughter-in-law for what happened. Not exactly. What she's saying very clearly, and many times in a row, is that she wants her son to have a proper defense. There's nothing wrong with that, folks. Nothing wrong with that at all. The interviewer asked Cindy, and you haven't had any discussions with his attorneys about this? And Cindy answered, no. I asked them, do you know what happened? And they say, no, we don't. The only person who knows what happened is Chris. Well, then he's told you his story, you know, in the affidavit. They said they would defend him if he wanted to go forward, but he said he didn't want to go forward. And the interviewer asked, and you would have liked to be part of that discussion with him before he made that decision? And Cindy answered, I would like to have, yes, that's what I thought we were going down there for. At least let us talk to him. It would have made all the difference in the world if they would have just let us talk to him. And then Cindy said something that I think really stands out. She made a very good point. She said, quote, if he was going to do this, what difference does it make who's listening? That's a very good point. If he was hell-bent on signing a plea deal saying that he murdered 3 people, then so what if somebody listened in, right? I thought that was a really good point. Cindy continued, he has our love. He has our unconditional love. I will never abandon my son. He did a horrible, horrible, if that comes to pass that he did this, then I still love him. He's my son. And I will always love him. And a lot of people don't understand that. In this part of the interview, where she just said that, and a lot of people don't understand that, she's referencing the attacks against her that had already been going on for a long time, calling her every name in the book, saying the most terrible things about her. And this is her response. This is how passive and how kind and how slow to anger Christopher Watts' mom really is. That's her response. Keep in mind, she's been getting attacked big time, and this is her response. I will always love him. And a lot of people don't understand that. That's her referencing the scumbag attackers. And that's the worst she says, because that's who she is. She's that kind of person. You know the old saying, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. It's obvious that that is something that Cindy probably has practiced all of her life. You know, I think many people would have taken that as an opportunity to say, we're being unfairly attacked by a bunch of thugs who are accusing us of terrible things and lying about us and harassing us by phone and making threats. Not Cindy. Cindy just said, he's my son. I will always love him. And a lot of people don't understand that. And then she said, and I don't understand why they don't. She talked quite a bit about Christopher Watts' childhood and how she didn't see any warning signs. He was a good kid. She said, yeah, he might have been a little bit socially, ooh, that's a tongue twister there. He may have been a little bit socially awkward when he was younger, but that it changed over time. As he got older, he felt more comfortable. And she shared that when she was younger, she felt somewhat socially awkward, and over time, she felt more comfortable. So that wasn't any big deal to her. And then Cindy Watts said, quote, I just don't think he had the right person by his side. That relationship was toxic from the very beginning. And of course, the attackers, I guess, expect people to believe that it's okay for them to commit crimes. You know, the crime of harassment, at the very least, right? Against innocent people over this sentence, over these 2 sentences. Because we've gone over this interview with a fine-tooth comb, and I haven't seen anything else that even would come close to being something that the attackers could pounce on. And by the way, I jotted down the time of this interview. It was 22 minutes and 3 seconds. If there is additional video from this interview that I'm not aware of, maybe there is something out there. I don't know. If you find a video on this interview that is longer than 22 minutes and 3 seconds, please do let me know, and I will take a look at it and I will cover that in a future video. But so far, I sure as heck don't see anything at all that Cindy said in this interview that would in any way justify the crap that's been going on right from the start. Remember, the crap that's been going on long before this interview that the attackers are using as their excuse for the attacks. Let's look at that again. Cindy said, I just don't think he had the right person by his side. That relationship was toxic from the very beginning. Well, it's 2 years after the tragedy, and we've seen a lot of information flooding the internet about the case of Christopher Watts. And to me, I think what Cindy said is a very reasonable statement. She said, I just don't think he had the right person by his side. I don't think he had the right person by his side either. I think when you have a woman who is going to fire his sister from the bridal party because she can't take the entire week off work in order to cater to her every whim, I think that pretty much shows that Christopher Watts didn't have the right woman by his side. I think when you have a woman who signs up for multi-level marketing programs, who spends and spends and spends some more when they didn't have the money to spend, who sits at home all day while the kids are in daycare full time, who calls him dummy, who calls the kids monsters, who claims she has a long list of diseases and illnesses and conditions and special dietary needs and blah, blah, blah. Oh, fertility issues. I forgot that one, right? Yeah, I'm thinking Cindy was right. When you have a woman who refuses to allow, come on, a grown man to go to the gym because she didn't want him to go to the gym, right? Yeah, maybe Cindy was right that he did not have the right person by his side. And maybe she was right. Maybe that relationship was toxic from the very beginning.